Okay, peeps, welcome back. So, LTCN and BCHG are still holding strong, even though pretty much everything else in the market's dumped off. Let's get it. So, before we get into LTCN here, let's just take a quick peek at the crypto market. As you guys can see, the market is down quite a bit. What's interesting though is Litecoin, the underlying for LTCN, is actually up, so that's good. But as you guys can see, pretty much everything else has gotten smashed quite a bit. To be honest, a lot of the altcoins that we have, we've been taking profit on the way up, and it's still a lot of them are still very cheap in comparison to their all-time highs. Again, we have not really had a true alt season yet, which also probably explains why we haven't gotten the mega parabolic moves on LTCN and these other trusts like you see back here, because again, the true alt season hasn't happened yet, which in order for that to happen, the Bitcoin dominance has to fall. We have not seen that. And Bitcoin has also not had its halving yet. So if we actually pop over here to the Bitcoin dominance, you'll see what I'm talking about. When this thing goes up, that means that Bitcoin is holding the market share of the crypto market, meaning that Bitcoin's in control. And when it dumps, and eventually it will dump, that means that money flows from Bitcoin into altcoins. So haven't seen that yet. But it's not just, as you guys can see, it's not just the crypto market. Like if I scroll up here through the watch lists that we have, nearly every single stock that we've been keeping an eye on or ETF has dumped, and that includes a lot of the dividend paying stocks too. Even a lot of the yield max ETFs and Defiance and all that. A lot of these have fallen off a cliff. So I think it was something like the PCE data or something like that came out a little hot, and now everybody's worried that the Fed's going to raise rates again. I don't know about the Fed raising rates. It's not something I can really speak to. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll just have to wait and see. So a lot of red across the board. It's not just the Grayscale Trust. So anyways, with that being said and out of the way, let's get into the actual content. So LTCN still looking pretty good. I mean, we have this big wick up here, so that's not good. But it's still a green candle, it's still above the previous candle. That's a good sign. As long as this candle stays green, I would say that it's still very bullish. The only thing that I think that we need to get past still is this major control bar here. You can see this is a really large red candle. Okay. And there's also a large volume candle here, as you guys can see as well. And I think once we get past that, likely we're going to head up to at least $75, if not all the way straight up to 100 to 135. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what the charts are showing me. So, and then once we get past that point, we will be up to probably, I'd say somewhere between $200 to $300 would be the next target after that. So I know it sounds crazy. Like you people probably are not going to believe. You guys are probably not going to believe that it's going to go to $200 to $300. Yes, it is. I'm nearly 100% sure of that. Okay. And I mean, again, even though LTCN's gone up a lot from the bottom, which is at like $2, $3, that's a huge gain. It's still nowhere near the highs. I mean, it's another 10x just to get back to the highs. So let's take a look at also the monthly, which is something I generally don't look at, but we're going to look at that here. So as you guys can see, the EMAs are curling up. They're getting ready to have a golden cross here. Really got to zoom out here to see this. So you guys can see once this yellow EMA closes above the blue EMA, that's it. I mean, that's the highest time frame EMA golden cross that you can get other than the quarterly, but we don't have enough information to look at that. So that's a very bullish sign. Also, this big green candle busted straight through that resistance, and it has closed above these previous candle tops here. So that's also a very good sign. But once again, like I said, we need to get above the control bar on the weekly. I'm not really too worried about this bar. I'm more so concerned about the weekly bar that we saw. Main reason being is because, once again, it is basically the capitulation stage of the drop here from the top on LTCN. As you guys can see, it was the final candle. That's what I like to refer to as a control bar. If we can get above that, then we should be good to go up to much higher prices. So daily time frame still looking very bullish. We did close slightly above this previous green candle we have here, so that's a very good sign as long as we keep getting higher highs. then I would definitely say we are still very bullish. EMAs are fanning out on the daily and the 4-hourly time frame, so that's very good. These EMAs fanning out like this is an indication of a very strong bull run, so there's a possibility of a pullback into this zone here, but at this point I'm not sure that it's going to happen because we had a pretty brutal day today and yesterday, and LTCN and BCHG just keep going up, so I'm thinking this thing's probably not going to dump, but we'll see. So anyways, the current support still sits between 23 to about 28 bucks. If you guys are looking for a dip buy, that's probably your entry right there. The first level we got to get above on this particular grayscale is $50. Then once we get above that, it's anywhere from 75 up to 134%. So the move from where we're at right now to that, say roughly about that $75 level is 65%, and then up to the resistance 113% to about 188% on that move. However, if you wanted to wait for a pullback, which again, there's no guarantee there's going to be a pullback, okay? It could go up, could go down, we don't know yet. But if you manage to somehow secure one and there was a pullback and you're lucky enough to get one, you'd be looking at a minimum 220% and maximum of anywhere from 300 to about 445%. So pretty large move up from there if you manage to get it. So BCHG, this one's still looking very bullish. We can take a look here at the monthly time frame. So monthly is still looking very bullish. You can see this massive, humongous green candle. It went from $4 to about $17. So that's, just in 1 month, you're talking like a 4.5x. That's a huge move. So yeah, the only more bullish thing this thing could have done was just basically shoot straight through this next resistance up here, which it didn't do, but that would have been pretty awesome. So it did close above this red bar here. You guys can see that basically that was the capitulation bar where we pretty much everybody capitulated, and then we kind of just slowly sold off, bottomed out, and then had this roundy bottom, and then we went back up. So this green candle closed above this red one. That's very bullish. We are sitting above this current resistance zone. Haven't had a close above it yet, which means it's not confirmed. But the next stop could be on the monthly, could be somewhere around that $36 level. Now, as for the daily and the 4-hourly, everything's still looking very good. BCHG did get another daily close above the previous one and also a close above this resistance, but still looking for the weekly to confirm above the resistance to say that it actually has turned into support for the highest probability. 4-hourly still looking very good. EMAs are still fanning out nicely. And the price is not too far above the EMAs, which is also a good sign. So going back to the weekly, we're still waiting for that confirmation above the resistance zone. If that happens, this will pretty much flip into support. It has to come back and test it, but if we get a close above, I'm not going to say it's a guarantee that it's going to hold, but there's a very high probability that this is going to hold as support. So the support zone is between $18 to about 20 bucks, resistance $42.50 to about 60. Again, keep that $36 level in mind on the monthly, which is roughly about the top of this green candle wick here. So from that point to the $36 level would be about a 70% move, and then up to the basically all-time highs would be about 101% to 184%. If you wanted to wait for a pullback, which again is not a guarantee, you'd be looking at 123% to 216%. So actually, let's go to HZEN first. So HZEN, this one still is within this bull flag pattern, although it is not really doing much. It's just kind of sitting there. So again, the target is roughly about 14.5 bucks on that pattern. We have not had a confirmed, like an actual confirmed bullish move above these candle tops here. We did have this breakout that confirmed a bullish close above on the weekly and above the resistance zone, and we're currently retesting it. So whether it's going to hold a support or not remains to be seen. It's possible, but we just don't know yet. So as of right now, we'll just say that this is support. So it's going to be about $7 to $8.30, and then resistance $11.40 to about $12.40. If you guys are wondering where the support zone is below that, it would be about where the EMAs are. So 380 to about $4 a share. If it gets back down to these levels, you guys can be sure that we are going to be loading the boat, because that is a cheap HZEN price. In comparison to the highs, that would give you roughly about an 8x. Do I think it's going to go higher than $30? Yes, I do. So the measured move from the current price to the resistance is about 50 to 63%, and then all the way to that target would be about 90%. The target is just shy of this candle wick here, but still a long ways away from the all-time highs. ETCG, this one is still quite interesting. So potential cup and handle pattern here, although the cup portion is not so obvious. We didn't really draw it out for this one because you kind of have this weird looking, I'm not sure what this is here, but typically with a cup and handle, you want to see like a really solid, perfect, round looking formation. Just giving you guys an idea of what that would look like. Something like this, or even something like, if you take a look at, I think Bitcoin also has one as well. Yeah, so something like this, very perfect looking round formation, going from basically down all the way up with no real kind of bumps in between that. That's pretty much what we look for that. So ETCG, the current support is actually holding pretty nicely. So you guys can see we flipped it here when we broke out and then came back. Now we're retesting it. So that support zone is between $13 to roughly about $16. Resistance is $17.50 to about $20. The all-time high, just so you all know, is pretty far up there. So it's just shy of $100. So from the current price to the all-time highs, it would be, I think, like roughly about a 6 or so X. It's possible it could go higher than that. ETCG is kind of lagging behind a lot of these other trusts. So in my opinion, it really hasn't had its move yet, but we'll just have to wait and see. So from the current price to the next level would be about 15 to 30%. If you wanted to wait to get in just a little bit lower, say, well, no, I don't want to get in now. I'm going to get in at the bottom of the zone at $13. Okay. It'd be about 33.5% to about 53.5%. So GXLM, this one does look pretty bullish. I mean, we still got this pennant pattern here, and it did have a breakout confirmed close above that resistance, so it's now testing a support. So the support is between 52.5 to 58.5, resistance 74 to about $95. So if you just wanted to get in now, which if it's testing the support and it's going to bounce, it's a pretty good entry point. So 30% to about 69%. If you wanted to wait, however, and say, well, I want to get the exact bottom or close to it, which is pretty much where the top of these candles are, so about $53, it'd be about 40% to roughly about 82%. So pretty good return on that. ETH, this is, again, another one that has kind of more of a perfect looking cup and handle pattern. Well, not the handle portion yet, but the cup portion, as you guys can see. So just so you all know, the target for that pretty much is from the absolute bottom of the cup to where the breakout point would be, and then you move that piece over to where it could potentially break out. So assuming it were to break out this week, the target would be about $54.50. If it broke out all the way down here, the target would basically be the previous high, which is roughly about 47. So do keep that in mind. EMAs are fanning out nicely. We did not actually hold this resistance as support, so at least it doesn't appear that we did. You can kind of see this little red candle here. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see it just barely closed below the zone, so that would pretty much invalidate the move. And then we had, obviously, this move down. So I would say if it's going to bounce, probably going to be somewhere between maybe about 1730 to somewhere in the bottom of this handle pattern here. So it could be anywhere from the 18s all the way up to the 22s. So if you got in somewhere in between that, minimum target 27 to about 46%, maximum target 103% to 137%. This would be support zone is between 25.80 to 28.80, and then 40.50 to 47.30 on the resistance. Zcash, this one is still trying to retest this, or it's actually trying to break out of this resistance. So we haven't had a candle close above it yet. All of these wicks indicate either profit taking and or selling pressure to try to keep the price suppressed. So that zone is between $7.30 to $8. The still current support is between $4.50 to about $5.25, and resistance is between $14 to about $17.10. So one of two scenarios could play out here. It could either drop to the next support, or it could bounce, confirm the move up, and then go up to resistance. So if it drops from the current level down to support, could be as much as a 40% drop. If it rips from the current level to the next level, it could be anything from 90% to about 130%. So pick your poison on that one. If you wanted to get in now, we already showed you what the target would be for that, assuming that it just goes straight up. But if you wanted to get in now and wanted to hedge against a pullback, basically DCA and down would be a good strategy. So get in now and then DCA down. Not financial advice. You could get probably a much better price doing that. That's what we're doing with ETCG currently. And let's just say your average was somewhere in between these two zones. So you'd be looking at roughly about 31 to 45%, and then as much as 150 to about 204%. So a much larger move on that one. GSOL, this one's still kind of doing nothing. Personally, I wouldn't buy this. I think it's still a little too overextended. This move is a little too uncertain. It's not giving me any confirmation one way or another. I don't think that GSOL is a bad project. I just look, when it comes to positioning in crypto, especially considering it's the most volatile asset in the world, okay? When it comes to us positioning into these things, we try to position in a spot that is the most favorable for us. It doesn't mean that we're going to get the entry. We may not get the entry. It might just keep going up. But a good example of a mistake that we just made, and I will freely admit this, is we just recently did a cash secured put at a 23.50 strike price on CLSK, and you can see that was an absolute disaster. Probably should have waited on that. But we basically tried to anticipate that the move was going to break out, and instead it broke down. So is what it is. We can recover from it. Not a big deal. But it just goes to show the risk of trying to buy at the top. As you guys can see, in one single week, CLSK from the peak down to the current price dropped about, well, not one single week, but essentially 1.5 weeks, dropped about 32%. So that just goes to kind of reiterate the risk of buying too high up in price. Again, when you buy closer to a support zone, you're de-risking. Basically, you're increasing the profit potential that you will make and reducing the potential drawdown that you could end up getting yourself into if you buy too high. So that's not financial advice. That's just kind of how we like to do it. Sometimes we slip up. We're not perfect, but majority of the time we do end up making money. So that's good. I would say that the buy zone, again, is still going to be somewhere between 180 to 260 on this one. If you were to get in perfectly at the bottom, you'd be looking at a huge 230% move. If you got in at these EMAs, the move would still be pretty good. It'd be about 118%. I mean, if you wanted to get in now up at these high prices and just DCA down, you could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good way to strategize to basically lower your cost basis as it comes down, and then eventually it rips to the upside. That's kind of what we did when we were DCAing into the Bitcoin miner stocks. We did something very similar to that, and it worked out nicely. So for this one, the current resistance level is still holding strong on Mana, which is roughly about that $50-$51 level. It's not breaking out of there just yet. So I would say anything from basically this support zone, so about $17, all the way to the top of this red candle wick here, so about 26 would be a ideal entry. Assuming you wanted to get in down there, the move up would be roughly about 200%. So GBAT, very similar on this one. It does kind of look like it wants to retrace, so maybe expect probably a drop on this one somewhere to about that $10 level, maybe maybe as high as $12, somewhere in there. Assuming that it does go down there, if you got in roughly around those prices, the move up would be pretty large. It'd be about 170%. If we're going to be a little bit more precise about this, we'll say the move is going to be roughly about 193%. So G-Link, this one, again, very similar to the previous two. Not really sure what it's going to do yet. It's looking kind of bearish on the last 2 weeks. So if it does drop, I suspect it's probably going to bottom somewhere out between $66 to about $90. I know that's a wide range, but this is the weekly time frame. So assuming you got in at the top, which is pretty much somewhere in the middle, the top of this support zone, and you rode the price action all the way up. Let's redo this. So you rode the price action all the way up. You get about 157% gain. So that's a pretty good gain. PhilG, this thing could definitely go higher. I mean, Filecoin is extremely undervalued. Filecoin itself, which we do have a position in, is more than it's roughly about I'd say somewhere between a 26 to a 30x from the previous all-time highs. So it's very, very heavily undervalued. Just based on that alone, I mean, PhilG, sky's the limit. It could go up to $1,000, $2,000 once Filecoin really starts popping off. It's possible. I know it sounds ridiculous, but unless this thing is just already priced in the move on Filecoin, if it has not, then it could go a lot higher. But I would not be buying up here. That's just me. So I'd be looking to buy somewhere roughly about, I'd say maybe $85 to about $120. That's a pretty conservative estimate. So just assume you got in roughly about $95. So somewhere in the middle, be about a 320% gain on that one. GLIV, this one is very indecisive. It's kind of up and down and really likes to sit around that $53 level. So not really sure what's going on here, but it's kind of just hanging around in that $50 to $55 level. So that could potentially mean a sell-off is coming. Because usually when something kind of stagnates at the top like that, the longer it stagnates, the more it increases the likelihood of a dump. We did actually see this with Bitcoin, so I can actually show you guys this right now. So if we take a look at Bitcoin, it's actually doing something similar here. So that's part of the reason why we said that we thought a retracement could be on the horizon before the actual parabolic piece of the bull run takes place. But you guys can see something kind of like a rounded top here. It happened on Bitcoin back in February 2021. This thing went pretty much sideways for 3 months, and then it did end up selling off. So I'm kind of seeing something a little similar here in the charts on GLIB. It's not that I'm not bullish on it. It's just that, we've been trading for so long that we kind of notice these things pretty quickly. So anyways, the top of these candles to the bottom of the wicks, once again, I would say is probably a good entry. So somewhere between about $25 to $28-ish, somewhere in there. You could go lower. You could say, well, that's still too much risk. I want to wait till it gets to maybe this flag pattern. So maybe $22. If I was going to buy this, I'd look somewhere between 25 to 28. I think that's a pretty good entry. So the move would be roughly about 200%. Anyways, LTCN and BCHG are holding up strong. I mean, it's kind of like the NVIDIA of the Grayscale Trust right now, so it's doing pretty good. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all later. Peace.